Specifically, I will be talking through your top FAQs about websites. We're going to hit those first and answer what I promised in the title of this session, what is normal? So these are the top questions I get from members in the network about their websites. We will cover even more, but it's things like, is my traffic okay? What is important about a blog? Should I even care about SEO? Basically, historically, I have answered these questions based on my experience, and I really wanted some data to back it up, just as Michael and Alan spoke about. So, with the help of members, I was able to study 111, I love that it came to that number, 111 advisor websites over the past summer. I was able to look at 375,000 website visits that drove 1,589 prospect meetings. I spent about 3 months on this study doing it along with my other work for the network. I ended up with 9 spreadsheets. I was only allowed to drink 100 milligrams of caffeine because I'm currently pregnant. And I only have about 45 minutes left to present, so let's go. My name is Carolyn Dalamole, formerly McCrae, but right before this baby, I got married. I am the marketing coach at XYPN, and that's my Twitter handle if you'd like to connect ongoing. In the network, I mostly run webinars, workshops, I do private coaching, and I also do a fair amount of recorded video and written training as well. Okay, so let's get into it. You will see this slide throughout the presentation. It is about your FAQs. But first, let's talk about the big ones. Is my traffic okay? And also, what's a normal bounce rate? Bounce rate is when someone comes to your website, looks at one thing, and then bounces away, just like a bouncy ball. The data shows that if your website's getting about 200 visitors per month, and your bounce rate is below 70%, you're doing okay. Specifically, this is a takeaway slide. You'll see these sprinkled throughout. If you'd like to keep it simple, you can just focus here. But I'm also presenting the hard data that I got from the study. So the report, actually, is normal performance across all participating websites is a count of 217 visitors per month. In your Google Analytics, this is called users. So if you're running Google Analytics on your site, which I highly recommend, it is free and takes about 10 minutes to implement. That was what you will see if you are having kind of a normal performance. And a normal bounce rate is about 68%. I was looking at mostly the median versus average because my sister is a statistician and said median is more reliable. So we are paying more attention to median, but I also ran averages, and they're very close as well. So you can think of it as an average if that's easier for your mind to do an understanding of. Here's some more data about visitors and what they do, also normal, if you'd like. This is also on your note-taking sheet if you want to make note and also look at yours later when you get home. But normally, a visitor is visiting only about 2 pages on average. This is an average, so for every person who only visits 1, there's a person who visits 3. And for every 3 people that visit 1, there might be a person that visits 6 or 8 or 9, right? So know that these are always averages. And it's okay for someone to come to your site, realize that they just want to read your blog post and then leave. That might be why someone only looks at 1 page. But on average, only about 2 pages per session and just over a minute spent on your site. If you're interested in mobile as well, 23% of traffic coming from mobile. How many people should be converting? This is a big one, and I was very interested to find that this number was quite low, which is also, in my opinion, to be expected. But the takeaway is if about 0.5% of your visitors are converting, when you look at your numbers month over month, that's kind of normal. I actually saw this conversation happen in the forums about a week ago. I don't know if that person is here today, but someone posted like, I'm only converting 0.5% of my visitors. That is totally normal. More specifically, it's about 1.3 prospects booked per month across all participating websites, and these advisors are in different stages. And I also point out, this is a metric I look at in Google Analytics, which is how much of your traffic is real. By that, I say, I do a filter. It's basically creating a segment in Google Analytics, but about 60% of participating websites have their traffic coming from a real source. That's US-based and a session that's longer than 5 seconds. That is to wean out any international traffic that most likely isn't a person that's going to become a client ever. And also robots who visit for a second and leave, or maybe even a millisecond, 0 seconds. I saw a hand. Is there a big question? Yes. Chris?
So that might be normal, but is it anywhere close to where we need to be?
Thank you, Chris. The next slide. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about great performance. This is the 90th percentile for each individual metric. This isn't the top one single website, but for each individual metric, you're in the 90th percentile if you're converting just over 2% of your traffic, getting almost 5 prospects a month, and nearly 3/4 of your traffic is real. So if you have the handout, I made a column for that, kind of great level. This is something you might want to shoot for if you want to be in the 90th percentile. Again, as you saw in slides about 20 minutes ago, you might put yourself up to the standard in year 3 or 4 of running your firm. And to step back, the other metrics I shared previously, which were visitors, pages per session, that kind of stuff that we already talked about. This is the great performance, that 90th percentile for the previous slide. What's important to consider is that you shouldn't ever put yourself under the pressure of having 1,000 visitors per month. In fact, I work with advisory firms who have even less than this 90th percentile number, but are running very, very healthy and successful firms. It's just that their conversion might be higher, but that denominator of visitors total is lower because ultimately they're driving really qualified traffic to their site, not just anyone from, like a Facebook ad. So that was performance, but what decisions can help impact these numbers? That was basically the profile. If we look back, these are what you might see in your Google Analytics in terms of how is your website doing, is your traffic normal, what are normal metrics, what's happening to other folks. But what are these decisions that you can make to impact the numbers when you want to boost them? So I looked at participating websites, not just their analytics, but also decisions that they've made with their websites to see which ones can help correlate with better performance. I want to highlight that we are not able to totally determine causation. So for these upcoming slides, it's not causation, it's more like correlation where there's a pattern. But with 111 websites, I was not able to achieve correlation. So one of those top questions, how important is a niche or a niche? Riches in the niches. On average, websites with a very clear niche get more prospects. The data shows it, and you will see in the next slide, but the takeaway is true when it comes to the website itself. Websites who claim to have a very clear single niche represented on their site did average more monthly prospects. Specifically, 3.3 compared to 2 if you are not. Pretty convincing in my opinion, but it's obviously not 0 if you're not choosing to niche. Also the decision to blog. I'm of the opinion that not everyone needs to blog. Blogging is one marketing strategy, but there are dozens of strategies. So while the data is compelling for blogs, it's not a requirement for your firm. I will add that. So blogging does show a stronger representation of organic traffic. If you like the HubSpot inbound marketing philosophy and you really want to dive deep, the data does prove that it's working for our industry. Just know that you don't have to choose that as your strategy. Specifically, firms who are blogging routinely, 80% of them see Google Organic in their top 2 sources of traffic. And that is bigger than firms that do not blog, and even if you're blogging occasionally. So blogging routinely was up to the judgment of the participant. I did not define blogging routinely, but generally when I'm in conversation with folks, this is usually the person who's doing it weekly or more. Occasionally, people self-identify usually as saying like, oh, about once a month or here and there when I have an idea. If you want organic traffic, blogging could be a way to drive more organic traffic to your site. One note is I was not able to see any change in the conversion of traffic for blogging. So you do get more organic, you get more people. This is top of the funnel, organic traffic. It's strangers finding you, that's pretty cool. But there was no real significant bump in conversion amongst participants. Should I care about SEO? Another big question. Similarly, if you work on SEO, it did show in the data that advisor websites are getting more organic traffic, which is the purpose of SEO, search engine optimization. Specifically, the data says that about a quarter of firms that did a lot of work have organic traffic as their #1 source, compared to just half of that if you don't work on SEO. So it's not that you can't get organic traffic, but you could perhaps really boost it if you want to do some work on SEO. And actually, let me refine what I just said. I said some work. This is actually the firms that said they did a lot of work. Firms that did the basics of SEO had about 20% of them were seeing organic as their top source. But the buck doesn't stop there with SEO. SEO work also shows more overall traffic as well. So if you're going to work on your SEO, not only will you get more organic traffic, but it's just also more traffic in general compared to other firms who do not care or pay attention to SEO. Yes?
What's the difference between traffic and organic traffic?
What's the difference between traffic and organic traffic? You mean specifically on the slide or in what I said?
Both.
In theory? So organic traffic is, I searched in a search tool. The biggest ones in the data were Google and Bing, surprisingly. So that is a consumer saying, I'm gonna go search for something online, and then they find you in those results. So you're appearing in page 1, likely, for their search, and they are naturally finding you on their own. Traffic is just all traffic that you might earn from different sources. Organic is one source of traffic. Did that answer? Okay. Yeah, Britton.
So a follow-up to that is, for the firms for whom organic traffic is not their #1, is there a clear contender for who is #1 in that spot?
Coming up. I saw in the back as well. Thank you.
How did you see it originally in SEO or not?
Their claim. So one of the profiling questions for participants, and I see some participants in the room, was, did you do work on SEO? Yes, we did a lot. I did capital lot, a lot of work on SEO. Yes, we did the basics, and no, not at this time. So it was self-selection. I was not able to really validate how much work they had done in the study. If this study was able to be my full-time job for 3 months, I might have really dug in, but I took their word. A lot, some, none. Okay, let's cruise on. This is just the data, sorry, that talks about SEO showing more overall traffic. If you do a lot of work on SEO, or for advisors who did, their average users were about 400 a month, and that is significantly bigger if you look at these segments parsed out. If you do no work, you might have about half the traffic. And does this traffic mean anything, right? So it's like, okay, we're getting organic traffic, we're getting more traffic from SEO. Does it end up proving to be valuable, right? Because who cares if just a bunch of readers come and then leave? Well, it is common amongst firms who are getting 3 or more prospects a month that they did work on their SEO, specifically over 90% of them. So when I looked at sites, and there's more to come on this factor, but when I looked at sites who are generating a steady stream of more than 3 prospects a month, the vast majority of them did pay attention to their SEO. To be determined what that really did in terms of impacting it, but it was certainly a correlation. Oh shoot, did I have the, yes, I didn't write the smaller. For people who did not, who do not get 3 or more prospects, the number is, I think, less than half did work on their SEO. Okay, another decision that you could make is posting your fees. I am of the opinion, and it is an opinion, that it makes a better experience for a consumer to see your fees before meeting with you. I do generally see, this was a big one in my gut instinct over time, I do generally see that more of the websites that post their fees get more interest in those prospect meetings. They get more meetings themselves. They get people who are feeling more comfortable and ready and less scared or critical. And the data did prove this. This was maybe one of the more compelling things that supported my gut. Firms that display their fees report twice the conversion rate, visitor to prospect, of those that do not on average. Specifically, if you're posting your fees, the average website that posts their fees is converting nearly a whole % of their traffic. Fees not posted might mean that you're converting just half of that. So easy enough. If you choose to not post your fees for other reasons, another thing that I find advisors might be struggling with is just feeling like they have explained their fees and they want to do that on the phone. That's more of a messaging challenge. So I would encourage you, if you're like, well, I don't really want to post my fees because I'm nervous to show my fees before they know my value, then that's more of like, let's work on that messaging versus just shy away from posting them at all. So it might be worth the exercise to try to articulate your value and post those fees on your site. If you do that and you do see a bump in prospect meetings, let me know, because it'd be very interesting if you've been getting 1 prospect meeting a month and when you post your fees, you double it. That'd be pretty cool. So we just covered and ran through quickly those top FAQs. We've answered all these questions. We've looked at the data. Some of the data is even more compelling than others, but I got a little bit selfish and I wanted to figure out the answers to my questions. So these were some of the things that I really wanted to know. Whenever I look at an advisor's analytics, I'm most interested in these top things. So let's dive into the first one. What are the best sources of traffic? This will hit on Britain's question in the audience. Overall, it was overwhelming how much advisors are getting most of their traffic from direct sources, Google Organic, Facebook was the top social media. Then we see NAPFA, Bing, a lot of CPC, which is cost per click, Google advertising happening. And another thing I, by gut, support and shows in the data, and XYPN as well. These are ranked in order of highest volume overall. And if you're curious about direct traffic just basically is a category of traffic, but it can actually be multiple sources. So direct might be the person met you, has your business card, and types your URL right into their browser. Or they've already been to your site, they remember the name of your site, so they start to type it, it autofills, they hit enter. It's direct, they manually enter it in. Sometimes it's also, Google doesn't know the source, and it might be coming from your newsletter or an email you sent to someone saying, so nice to meet you, check out my website to learn more kind of thing, and they go direct from Gmail or Outlook. It's usually just a very one-on-one, like an email to the person or them doing it themselves. It's a very like high-touch personal source versus obviously like NAPFA. They're on there looking for their advisor and it's crowds of people. Yes?
When you say traffic, you're always talking about your real traffic metrics, right?
No.
So this is all?
All. Yes. Thank you for asking. Yeah, the hang up with that real traffic filter is you're only able to look back 30 days, and I looked at an entire year for this study. Yes?
Does Facebook number differentiate between Facebook ads and just people looking at your Facebook page, or is that all Facebook?
So I cannot say for 100% certainty, but I did see Facebook ads broken out separately. I am therefore assuming that this is Facebook organic or your Facebook page, not paid. Usually it's denoted when it's an ad. Yes?
Would something like MailChimp come under direct or would that be?
Yeah, so the question was, would MailChimp be under direct? Sometimes, not always. It really depends on whether the Google bot is able to identify if it's your newsletter or not. Usually, actually, I shouldn't start that sentence with usually. I see both happen. So direct is that kind of category of unknown. They're coming straight to you. There's no obvious source of tracking. If you've set up tracking, some advisors get really into their analytics and they are able to parse it out. I would say likely yes, your newsletter is included in direct. But I can't say that for sure in the data. But if you look at yours, like when you go home, it's probably collected there. You can scroll through though and see if MailChimp shows up as a source. Yes?
Of the 111 websites, did you analyze whether any of them had paid campaigns of any kind?
They do, yes.
So do you have an idea like what percentage ran paid versus pure organic search?
So paid is not yet, paid is represented in CPC here. If it's organic, it is organic. Organic is the opposite of paid. And you will see also in coming slides a couple other moments of paid. But I didn't analyze paid ads. I would love to do another study on how paid advertising is working compared to organic. Gut is that they both can do well. It depends on the audience and the platform and the use of the paid, because anyone can throw money at a paid ad and have the ad be kind of odd. But that would be a whole nother study, I think. Yes?
Do you have a percent breakdown of the 111 sites? What percent of those firms are doing some type of paid campaign via Facebook or search?
No. I don't have a hard number on that one. But I'm going to cruise through a little bit longer because we have a few more things to get through. So hold on one second. We can come back to questions as they sprinkle in, but I want to make sure for others that we get through some of these kind of core slides. Looking at the overall traffic, though, and then traffic sources for websites that get a lot of traffic, the differences start to come in when they are using the XYPN blog. So we have a blog that's consumer facing and you can submit to it. For folks that send a newsletter, I see a bump in traffic and they're tracking it. And also Pinterest starts to appear. So here's the list of top sources that appear in the top 3 sources for websites that are getting the most traffic. So this was the 90th percentile of traffic. Where are they getting their traffic? They're getting a lot of it. Where is it coming from? Turns out the newbies that start to appear are XYPN blog, the newsletter of the firm, and also Pinterest, which was maybe the most surprising thing in the data for me. I have not ever really worked with an advisor on their Pinterest strategy. It's never come up in conversation. However, it's in the data. So if anyone is having a great success on Pinterest, that's cool. I will mention that there was a small count within the people who are in the 90th percentile. There's a small count that have a second brand or a second website. Oftentimes this was a content website, like a website uniquely designed for their podcast, or they have a blog that is hosted on another domain, and that domain is sending people to the firm. That's cool. I will also say, for some of these firms that do have a second website, I personally know these firms, and they are kind of in that 3-4 year mark. They're not doing this at year 1, but it's more like kind of a scaling growth choice that they might make to develop a second brand alongside the firm's brand and drive traffic to the firm through their content. The third question I asked when it comes to traffic sources is, what are the best sources truly? Like, what's driving the best conversion? What are the sources that we should actually care about? Because this is volume, right? And volume is fine, but I actually care much more about what's driving those 4 prospects you got last month. So when it comes to highest converting websites, they are getting a lot of traffic from NAPFA, Yelp, and the XYPN Find an Advisor portal. Also that second website. So here are the sources for highest converting websites. You'll see some changes. For instance, Pinterest disappeared. XYPN showed up again in terms of the portal, not just the blog, and also Yelp. So if I were you, I'd be mostly caring about the third column and be interested or intrigued by the first 2, but when it comes to growing the business, bumping that bottom line, these are the ones that are apparently driving a lot of traffic to the highest converting websites.
Is Yelp,
Oh, that's okay. I was confused.
organic or paid?
In our industry, it has to, I believe, be organic to be compliant. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, 1 second. Yes.
How much of that comes from like the Google My Business page or Google reviews versus just search box? Is there any way to disaggregate what came from like your Google business page versus
In Google Organic.
Yeah.
So the question,
Are they tied together?
they're clumped together. It's Google, the Google search page driving you traffic. And then, yeah, so the business page might show up. If you have a Google My Business, it is bucketed under Google Organic. Unless you've done something fancy to try to parse out that data. Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Is fee-only network captured in those, or is that just not on the list?
It was just further down. It was less likely to appear in the top 3 sources of traffic. So while I am listing, 6 or 7 here, these are all appearing in those top 3 for the websites that I was analyzing. So Yelp, for instance, appeared in the top 3 for multiple sites that are getting the best conversion. So I saw the fee-only network appear, but it was just not in the top 3 for these cohorts. Yes, Justin?
The organic conversions, are those people searching for financial advisor location, or is it more topics like retirement?
I did not look into the keywords. That would also be an awesome sub-study. Okay, my next question was, what pages do consumers actually care about? So when we look at a site, there are pages that we spend a lot of time on, and then there are other pages that we don't. And I always had an inkling that the homepage was very important, and also that the information about the advisor, the person, was important, and also the process pages are important. These are my gut instincts, and I wanted to know if in the data it proved to be true. The first 2 of my gut instinct were absolutely true. By far, the top viewed pages on the websites in the study were homepage and also about page. Homepage is likely not very surprising. A lot of people end up on the homepage and navigate from there, but the about page was overwhelmingly popular. And then also, that's the most views, but I also wanted to know where are they spending the most time. So again, quality. Where are they really showing up and reading every word? That was interesting. That's where content comes into play. The number one page spent in terms of spending time is a single blog post. Then also the schedule page, which was curious to me and makes me think maybe folks are filling out forms on that page or watching a welcome video, which I know I've implemented on a couple firms' pages to get some higher engagement. Blog main pages also get viewed for a long period of time, and then comes the about page, contact, and also surprisingly, FAQ. People are spending the time reading through the FAQs. So if you want better engagement in terms of quality engagement on your websites, consider perhaps launching some of these pages or at least adding more detail for people who want to read longer. Yes? Like book a meeting, similar to contact, but sometimes there are different types. So you could almost, if you clumped those two together in the data as similar, then it would be even perhaps number one. Yes?
Can you talk about how you define conversion? Is that just including the online conversions or offline as well?
Online exclusively, website-driven prospect meetings.
So they had to visit certain pages or they got to the thank you page?
Say that another way.
So, like, how did you define a conversion? Just a page view of certain pages on the site or like to an actual like thank you page because they completed a homework?
So this is about time, but when we look at the conversion metrics, it is, I asked advisors how many prospects they've gotten off their website exclusively in the time period. Okay. The third question on my mind is about hiring a professional designer. So professional designers can be pretty pricey. My gut is always that they end up creating a better, higher converting website. Is that true? One of the most compelling stats was actually in satisfaction of participants. So firms are much more likely to feel satisfied with the website's impact on their growth if a professional designed it. So one of the questions I asked participants was, how satisfied are you with your website's ability to impact growth? And there was a 5 scale, very satisfied, satisfied, neutral, dissatisfied, very dissatisfied. And it ran the gamut, but there was a pattern for people who hired a professional to design it being more satisfied on its impact on growth. Was that too many words? So the actual stat is 60% of firms who hired an agency reported being satisfied with the impact on growth, and that is very different from particularly websites designed by the advisor or the team themselves. If you see the bottom number, if you've created your own website, you might fall in the category of people who are not very satisfied with the impact on growth. It might be a reason to at least perhaps hire a freelancer, because as you see, a friend or family member or a freelancer with the skill to create a website might just do the small things that end up mattering a lot to a visitor and then help convert more visitors and help you grow more. So there's only a slight dip between agency and freelancer, which is promising to me, because not everyone can afford a $10,000 or $30,000 website. And then the big shebang is, what did successful websites choose to do? By successful, I decided to filter out those sites that are getting 3 or more prospects a month. That tends to be just this gut feel across members that say, I really want to reach at least 3 prospects a month on my website. And this range was quite large. It was anywhere from 3 to, I think there was a firm in the study that has over 20 prospects per month coming from the website. The size of firms varied significantly. But the most obvious thing successful websites do is they follow the best practices. Overwhelmingly, they just did the things that we all walk around saying are important. The data does show that it can, in total, it's very interesting to see that when you package together the best practices, you might then fall into this group of people who get the average prospect meetings of 3 or more a month. Specifically, what that means is over 90% of them worked on their SEO. They also post their fees on their website. About 4 out of 5 of them have a niche, and over half of them routinely blog. So it's just kind of like, if you do the things you've been knowing you should do, but have been scared to, or don't have the time, or just getting started, the best practices do show to be a pattern amongst people who are having that steady stream of prospects. On average, it's important to also point out the websites that are getting these 3 or more prospects per month, on average, have been up and running for about 2.5 years, on average. And the average conversion of the traffic for these websites is just over 2%. Yes?
Any differences between Squarespace, WordPress, Wix, or other platforms? Like, are any of them specifically higher or lower for people?
Did not study website hosts. What I see in general, so again, going back, less data, more gut, is it's not the platform you use, it's how you use the platform. I've seen gorgeous Wix websites. I've also seen more of like the brochure Wix website that has only stock photos and like just very basic stuff. So it's less about the tool, more about the use of the tool. Yeah. But all very good ideas for follow-up sessions. So it looks like they inserted this slide to my presentation. So you can give me a score or something. Please rate it in the app. I guess you can find me as a speaker and rate me. Would appreciate it. But I'll also leave, so since this is the first breakout session, I might leave this up for an extra few seconds because you've maybe not seen it yet before, but part of the process. And also, my other call to action is to send me a tweet if you can, if you're on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter and you're a member in the forum, you can also message me in the forum. But I would love to take votes for what I should present on in, that's my Twitter handle, in upcoming years at these conference sessions. But also, if I see an overwhelming vote for a certain theme, I can also run a webinar on it for members even sooner. That's much faster turnaround and doesn't rely on another 12 months. But thank you, and at this point, we do have time for questions, so we can dive deeper into any of the slides if you would like. Yes?
On the beginning on the bounce rate metrics, I just find out if I'm correct or not, but I think I have a single scrolling site, so I don't think the bounce rate metrics are accurate.
It'll be accurate, but it'll just be very high. So the question was, I have a single scroll website, these bounce rates aren't going to apply to me. If there's no choice to click around, then yes, everyone will just come, view the one page, and leave, because there's nothing to do else otherwise. So it'll probably be 100% bounce rate. But that's okay, and that's normal for your site. It's also very important when looking at data to apply some logic and be like, oh yeah, they only spent 10 seconds on that page because there's only 10 seconds of content on that page. So it's not surprising everyone doesn't linger there. Similar with a bounce rate for a single scroll, it'll be very high. Yes, up front.
Gentlemen, can you show us, are you able to show us a couple of examples of these high-performing websites and what they look like?
I promised to be anonymous, so no. Britain.
Having said that, you did mention the whole 90% of them worked on their SEO. Am I the only person here who's like, hey, that would be an awesome next presentation. What SEO do you do in order to be successful? Does that sound like something you really want to hear? Yeah. Take a minute.
SEO.
SEO. So, but question for you, going back to the professional designer, it was super interesting what I didn't hear, which was other statistics besides satisfaction in terms of growth of firm. correlated to the professional designer. So does that mean like looking at the other data, you were like, well, this is the one that stands out. But other than that, it's not so much whether a professional designer worked on the site as it is working on SEO, posting to your website, having an image, et cetera. Is that fair to say?
So when I look, correct, the significant change was in satisfaction with the site, hence why it appeared. What did not appear was conversion, and that was because it was very slight. There's a lot of data that I ran and did not put in, actually 50 slides, I think this is, but it was there, but it was incredibly slight. And there was no real way to say correlation there. So surely. Yes, here.
Did you capture cost data? How much somebody was paying for their site, like for the professional?
Oh, no. I did not ask how much they paid for the site. Yes. Yeah, here.
So for purposes of this presentation, you're saying when you're referring to SEO, it sounds like you're talking mostly about specific content. But what are the other SEO optimization strategies, like backlinking, other kinds of things?
Oh, yeah.
Talk a little bit about more.
So the question is, when you talk about SEO, I heard a lot about content. What are the other things you can do to get SEO without content? In general, content is king for SEO because the more content a robot can look at and get confident about your website that it's a good result for this search, the better. You just need more words for the robot to look at and start to like. They start to send people to your site. If those people like it, if they stay there and linger, the robot knows that, so they boost you even more. There are other basics you can do. That's why I kind of gauged how much basic, and that is more like the pages of your website are optimized for the appropriate search terms. Linking can help for sure, but it's still not as powerful as having more and more content, including video. It doesn't always have to be written blog posts. You could also just have a website that has 50 pages somehow and be a positive experience. But the content really is king for SEO.
Can I ask a quick feedback question?
Sure.
What's like the average words for like a blog for it to like really be impactful? And then how many, you said routinely posting blogs, what does that mean? Like how many blogs per month or how often?
So I had them discern what routinely was. Usually it means weekly or more. And then for the other question was, oh, words. You can do research on that. There's a lot of articles online, but you will see it's probably at least 1,500 words. So it is long, yes.
The idea of having video, is that because the time spent is increased, or why does that help SEO?
So why does video help SEO? Usually the robots can understand the words that are being said in the video. Yes, here.
I don't know if I'm drawing the right conclusion, but in terms of like working with an agency, you throw out some pretty big dollar amounts.
Yes.
That costs, like, the conclusion I draw from that is, okay, if you work with a freelancer for a few $1,000s,
Yes.
you pay 3 or 4 or 5 times more for an agency.
Yes.
5% increase in satisfaction.
Yes.
That probably doesn't make sense.
You could draw that conclusion from the data. Yes. Is that 5? Okay. 5 minutes, yes.
How often do you recommend we look at this analytics data? Should we look at it weekly, monthly?
I love that question. How often should you be looking at your analytics? Depends how much time you're spending on your marketing and how many experiments you're running. If you're just kind of cruising lightly with your marketing and you're not like really being that aggressive about it, then you might get away with looking at your data quarterly. If you're running experiments, I'm looking at the data weekly because I'm very, very eager to see that feedback loop so I can spend the budget wiser or, tweak the page or things like that. And then there is that middle ground where if you want to hold yourself accountable and you want to be very present in your marketing, then monthly is a very good idea. Usually I like to do the first of the month. It might be, the second or the third, depending on the weekend. But usually when the month turns over, I look back and I say, how did last month go? And I collect some of the stats manually, just so I'm like working with the data. So it really depends on your attitude and your commitment. It could be anything. I would say no more or no less frequently than quarterly though, just so you stay in touch with reality. Yes?
Would there be a way to like schedule a workshop time, maybe tomorrow, if you want to set up analytics, interpret their...
So it's very easy. You will need access to your website tech, whether if you're running Squarespace and you know how to use it, you'll be able to set up your analytics within 5 minutes. But you just go to analytics.google.com, create an account, tell them you're... Oh.
I kind of like looked through it and then...
So there...
have to spend some quality time.
Yeah. Spend some quality time. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah, so there are 2 webinars available to members where I walk through the beginners of analytics. You're a member, correct? Yeah, so if you go to the recorded webinars, you can access webinars on Google Analytics. Some of it is quality time, and if you want to meet together and talk about analytics, that'd be great. I have coaches' corners. Thank you for coming. You can scoot out if you'd like. Malcolm? Thank you. All right. Oh, yes. Cynthia? Okay, we'll go. Bye.